Well, hello, and welcome back. Today is part 2 of building your first medieval forge bellows. If you missed part 1, it's over there or down there, and we are going to get right into it. Just sticking the ends of this rib in here, and I'm gonna nail them in there. I have now nailed this into the leather and got a successful leather hinge for the rib. So now I need to put on top plate. So I'm just gonna cut a strip of leather to work, because the hinge is gonna be about, something like that wide. I'm gonna put this onto the top plate first. It's gonna be way harder to put that on after it's up here without a proper striking surface underneath it. Alright, so I got the hinge nailed on here and got it stuck up here on the block. It's important to make sure you have a relatively tight fit. It doesn't have to be super tight, but it's got to be relatively close to the block there. I'm gonna stick a couple nails relatively close to the edge, just so it doesn't have too much wiggle room. Alright, the next step is going to be getting this leathered. I'm going to tack on the leather on this end, and I'm going to kind of work my way around. We'll just put it on the leather, onto the bellows, and it's going to be kind of hard to see what I'm doing here, but I'll show you partway through. And I have made a mistake. I forgot to put the hole that the air comes in through in the bottom of the bellows, so you should do this before you put the bottom plate on. But we're gonna do it now, okay? By the way, this is not the best way to do it. Again, if you have a drill it up. People in the medieval ages did that all the time. They had an auger. That's the way I would recommend doing it. But this should work. That's what I did on my last bellows. And it worked, so. So you might think that you could chisel it out like that, kind of in the middle, and that might work. But it also very well might put a linear crack down the entire length of your bellows. And that's not something I want to do. So that's why I did it the way I did it. So what I'm going to do here, now that we've cut this out, I'm going to put this over here so I have something to nail the leather to over this. And then I'm going to take this, which is actually just the piece we cut out, and it's going to have a leather hinge going to here. Right, so as you can see, when I pull this up, it creates a draft going upwards. It's sucking in air. And so that suction sucks this little air gate here up, and then as soon as it stops being sucked, it flops back down. It's on a leather hinge. When I push down, that even further makes sure that it seals down. It doesn't let hardly any air out, forcing all the air to have to go out the front. So that's just important to understand how the air gate works. It's just on a leather hinge. It is worth mentioning, I split a couple of these off camera, different boards and stuff, and if you want to save yourself a bit of trouble, you can pre-drill the hole before you put the nails in. That helps when you're working with this small stuff and this big of nails. That happens. So if it doesn't fall quite perfectly, it's not terrible, but it's not quite falling how I want it to. Just take it, rasp down whatever's catching. In this case, it's this corner. Yeah, that's falling better. I'm also going to need to put a little restrictor band, I guess, so it doesn't fly up too far. Nice fancy cutting board. well. So next step, putting on the leather. It's going to be wrapping this in leather. We're going to have leather coming around the back like you saw there, and it's going to be tacked on to the bottom and top plate and then all tapered down to the block. And I know it's a trouble for people to get leather because this is obviously, I'm doing this low budget for the beginner, people starting out want to do medieval blacksmithing. And so just some ideas, what I'm using here is going to actually be an old scrap leather couch. If you have couch, chair, just anything leather, if you can find enough leather to go around this thing, I think it's roughly 82 inches around this. That's just my measurement. You do whatever you're doing. And it's about 32 inches tall, tapering down to about 4 inches at the end. Then I have some about 1 foot flares to wrap around the block on the end of that. Obviously you can buy leather commercially, but it's gonna be a lot more expensive. It is handy though to have it in just a nice layout leather. You can just cut it out. That's the way to do it if you can, but it's a lot more expensive. The couch I'm gonna be cutting this off is very cheap. And so if you wanna save money, that's the way to go. I will be coming out with a video in the future on how to make your own rawhide. That works very well for a bellows. Just pulling the leather around here and tacking it in place. The other side. There we go. And probably gonna tack it in the middle here in just a second. I gotta make sure these are up and out of the way. Right now I'm just going around the edge here, putting in tacks every so often. Make sure that it's tight enough all the way around. So this part's a little scary here because I'm tacking into this little kind of bridge, for lack of a better word, the one that, if you remember, I put over this gap we sawed for the air to come through. And if it cracks, I will not be a happy camper. Okay, so now I'm going to put a tack in the rib here. I've put the rib underneath the leather. I'm just going to try and support it with my hand, and I'm going to hammer it in here. Working pretty good. There we go. It's good. Now we're back to tacking this on. By the way, if you don't know what these are, you might be wondering what these are. They might look a little bit like elephant ears. They're not. They're actually for wrapping around this to seal it up at the end, because it has a tendency to leak otherwise. So that's what those are for. So this is where it really starts looking like a bellows. It's not perfect. Part of the reason is this was, I think this was some sort of corner on the chair I cut this off, so it's not going to look perfect. This recycled leather, but it is a bellows. It does pump air and it does work. It still needs a lot of work here. This obviously all needs tack down to the side. You can see I just kind of put some tacks around the outside, but it needs tack down the entire way so that it seals in the air, and the end needs sealed. So we still have quite a bit of work to do on this thing, but this, now, you know, it's a bellows. It looks like a bellows. Right, so like I was saying, when I explained the leather, you're gonna leave these long strips at the end, and those are for what I'm doing now, which is wrapping these around the end, because you know, this is not very well sealed. This is just wood on wood. It's not gonna be very well sealed. I'm just gonna wrap this around that and put some tacks in it. And there's probably a better way to do this, but this worked on the last bellows I built, and I think it's gonna work well on this one as well. All right, and wrapping this up, you can see this is not the prettiest bellows I've ever built either. But this doesn't look that nice to me. I don't really like the way that looks, but it does work well, and that is what I'm focused on. So just wrapped it up. I'm gonna try and nail it down tight enough. That should get it looking a little better. Go over the whole thing and make sure everything fits well before I tack the whole thing. I'm gonna put a tack, you know, about a finger's width apart all the way along the entire edge. There's a lot of tacks. Second thought, I need a ball peen hammer. Right, so this is just gonna be a lot of hammering. I'm gonna be putting in tacks all the way around. So we're just gonna skip through this and we will talk on the other side. Quick note, you can see I've already kind of done this on this side, but the leather is gonna obviously not be sitting on there before you tacked it. So I recommend you go around like I did here and just put tacks every little bit to make sure that it's all held down good. good and tight before you go around and put them real close together. It is kind of important to make sure your nails are close enough together. Obviously, if they're too far apart, you're gonna let air out like that. And of course, you don't need them right next to each other because the leather will seal. As long as you put them close enough, you can kind of see how close they are. Just get them something like that. I might have them just a touch closer than they need to be, but not much. So we just finished getting it all the way tacked all the way around. Pretty much finished. Just need to get a handle on this, seal up the end a little bit here, and then also if you use thin boards like I did, you're likely to have, or you may not, but you may have a hole like this in it. So I'm just gonna show you real quick how to patch that if you do run into something like that. So I'm just gonna use a little piece of leather like this, and I'm gonna come around like that, put a couple tacks in it here, put a couple tacks in the end, and that'll do it. We're just about done here. Just need to put on a little handle here for pumping. Just gonna approximate how long it is. About there should do. Right, so this is the handle here. I'm just gonna cut in a little shelf here so it sits nicely on the top of the bellows. There you go, nice little shelf. So it'll sit about like that, and we'll nail it down. I do recommend that you put in your nails before you nail them into the bellows, because the bellows tend to bounce a bit and doesn't really like being nailed to. Also, putting this, I just discovered, over the edge of your workbench rather than over just your bellows it makes them sink a lot better. Right, so we have successfully created a medieval forge bellows with nothing but some little bit of scrap lumber and some couch leather and an old scrap piece of pipe. And it does work, works pretty well actually, puts out a lot of air. So now I'll go over a couple mistakes I made on this build and hopefully help you avoid them. So one main one is I gave myself too much leather in this area. I should have pulled this up more when I tacked it and then cut off the top of the leather there. As it is, I have some slack space in there, which probably means I'm not getting quite as much air out of this thing as I could be, although it's still pretty good actually. I do want to show you the nails I used to secure the leather down. So these are actually carpet tacks. You can get them just about anywhere. They're 1/2 inch long. They look pretty good in medieval. This is pretty much what they used in historical bellows. And they're quite cheap. They work very, very well. So this is definitely what I recommend using. Right, so this is the two bellows. I will be coming out with a video in the very near future on how to build your own earthen charcoal forge, and I'll be using these two bellows for that. They basically work about like that, roughly, and yep, so stay tuned. This one did turn out a good deal prettier than this one, partially because it's dyed. I am going to dye this one just for looks sake. I think it looks better, but you don't have to. It's not functional. It's just cosmetic. They both work very, very well. Very pleased with this build overall. So that just about wraps this up. If you want to see more of this content, there is a way to do that. Got any comments, build ideas, suggestions, leave them down in the comment section. And until next time, farewell, wherever you fare.